a little more. A hypothesis on the nature of consciousness. The closest modern physics comes to an idea of an all-pervading, non-dual entity is probably the notion of a unified field. Indeed, one contemporary commentator on the Vedas, Maharishi Mahesh, has already equated Brahman Atman with the unified field. However, the concept of a unified field is itself a very preliminary stage of formulation at this point. So it may be more fruitful for our purposes to examine one particular manifestation of the unified field which has a quite direct, empirically measurable relationship with working brains. This is the electromagnetic field. The electromagnetic field is just as all-pervading as the putative unified field, and it holds for us the distinct charm that its configurations are already routinely measured, both by clinical and research neurophysiologists throughout the world on a daily basis. Consequently, we already have a huge mass of data on the relationship of various configurations of the electromagnetic field to the phenomenology of consciousness. So perhaps the answer we've been looking for is that what has in the past been called the electromagnetic field is itself consciousness. And perhaps our individual consciousness, which, unlike the field as a whole, are bounded in space and time, are identical to the particular local spatiotemporal configurations of the electromagnetic field. At first sight, this idea may seem outrageous or even bizarre. After all, every basic physics text lays out the properties of the electromagnetic field, and consciousness is not one of them. Manifestations of the electromagnetic field include radio waves, light, X-rays, and gamma rays. None of these has anything whatsoever to do with consciousness. What can we be thinking to propose that the electromagnetic field is conscious? Surely this is nothing more than New Age mumbo-jumbo. On a closer consideration, however, the idea is not as upsetting as it may at first appear. All of the mentioned varieties of waves in the electromagnetic field, light, radio waves, and so on, have frequencies above 1,000 cycles per second. And there exists a whole spectrum of lower frequencies than this, for which no particular properties have been assigned. In particular, the extremely low frequency, ELF, range of electromagnetic fluctuations from 0 to 100 Hz has not attracted too much interest from physicists until now, probably because waves of this frequency do not propagate well, and are therefore not particularly useful for transmitting information over long distances. Interestingly, 0 to 100 Hz turns out to be exactly the frequency range of the electromagnetic oscillations that are generated by biological brains. So perhaps this idea does deserve further consideration. Perhaps it will even turn out to be the basis for an answer to so-called hard questions. What does conscious experience? Why does conscious experience exist? If it arises from physical systems, as seems likely, how does it arise? Is consciousness itself physical, or is it merely concomitant of physical systems? How widespread is consciousness? Do mice, for example, have conscious experiences? Why is seeing red like this rather than like that? Why do we experience the reddish sensation that we do rather than some entirely different kind of sensation, like the sound of a trumpet? Perhaps it will answer the call of the same author when he says, ultimately, one would like a theory of consciousness to do at least the following. It should give conditions under which physical processes give rise to consciousness, and for those processes that give rise to consciousness, it should specify what sort of experience is associated, and we would like the theory to explain how it arises, so that the emergence of consciousness seems intelligible rather than magical. In the end, we would like the theory to enable us to see consciousness as an integral part of the natural world. Currently, it may be hard to see what such a theory would be like, but without such a theory, we could not be said to fully understand consciousness. Let us see if we can show Dr. Chalmers what such a theory would be like. And then there's a table in here, and it lists different ranges of frequency in hertz alongside regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. So gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet light, visible light, infrared light, microwaves, radio waves, and then consciousness is at the very bottom, ranging from 0 to 10 to the second. Okay, that's all of the introduction. I'll read just a little bit of chapter... No, I won't. Okay, bye.